Welcome back, class. Today we're going to go over two more properties. The previous lesson we went distributive. Today we're going to go over two more, the commutative and the associative properties. Now the commutative property, I'm going to call it the prop. All that basically means is if you have two numbers like 2 plus 3, you add them up, you get 5, of course. You could also add them up as 3 plus 2, meaning you can switch them around to still get 5. So it doesn't matter what order you add your numbers in, just as long as you add them up. And that also works for multiplication. For example, 2 times 3 is 6. But if I flipped it around to 3 times 2, that would also give me 6. So when you're multiplying or adding, you can actually switch those numbers around. And actually as well, that also works kind of for subtraction, and I'll show you what I mean right here. If I had 3 minus 2, I subtract that, the answer is obviously 1. But I can switch this around also, meaning I can switch it around to not just 2 minus 3, but I have to switch the sign that goes with it. So with that 2, I have to switch the minus sign with it. So I can think of it as negative 2, and that's a positive 3, so I'll put plus 3 there. And either way, it's like saying you have $3, but you take away $2, you still end up with $1. So these are you can switch those around as well. Same thing works with multiplying. You can also do that with dividing, because division is basically just multiplication of fractions, just flipping things over. So if I had a problem like this, 5 times 6 divided by 5, we know 5 times 6 is 30. And we know that 30 divided by 5 is 6. So you're basically undoing the multiplying by 5. Now when I switch these things around, I can think of this as 5, but I can't just switch the numbers. I have to switch the symbol, the sign that goes with it. So I'm always dividing by 5. So I have to switch the dividing by 5 and putting it over there times 6. So then when I switch things around, I'm going to use 5 divided by 5 to give me 1, and 1 times 6 is 6. So I could basically do that mentally. So what I used here, I use a commutative property to switch around the numbers, but you're also switching around the signs as well. You don't see it here because that's a positive 3, that's a positive 2, and you usually don't write a positive sign up in front. It's just assumed. If you just have a digit, you're assuming that it's positive. Whereas here, you can't just assume it. You got to put that up in front there. The idea is that when you're dividing by that number right after it. You have to divide by 5. You're not dividing by 25, you're not dividing by 30, you're not dividing by 6, you're dividing by 5, which is why I have to keep those guys together. And what I did over here, I used a second property called the associative property. I'll call it the associative property. And the associative property basically says when I multiply or even add, I can group them, I can associate them any way I want. I could do the 5 times 6, or I could do the 5 divided by 5 here. So if I had a problem like this, 8 plus 7 minus 3 minus 4 plus 2. I look at this problem here, and I'm going to use the associative property and the commutative property together to do mental math, basically. I look at this problem, and I can see that the answer is going to be 10. And the way I did it is I look at that 7, and I see that plus 7, and I'm going to associate two numbers together, this minus 3 and that minus 4. So think of it in terms of money. I owe somebody $3, and I owe somebody else $4. I now owe them $7. So if I have $7, and I owe somebody $7, I've got nothing. They cancel each other out. And now I can associate that 8 with that plus 2. So in essence, I'm just doing 8 plus 2 is 10. So here's a combination of the commutative and associative. I didn't commute it on paper on the board here. I basically did it in my head. The way I would do that on the board, if you wanted to show your work, you would have this problem. Then you'd rewrite it as 8 plus 2. So you're taking this and moving it over. Then plus 7. Then minus 3, then minus 4. So I just commuted the 2 over here. And now I can associate these guys together to get negative 7. then I can associate these guys together to be 0. And basically, I'm back to 8 plus 2 is 10. Now you could do the same thing with multiplying and dividing. So if I had a group of numbers over here, say 5 times 7 times 2 times 125 divided by 7 times 8. I go over here, if I go from left to right, I have to do 5 times 7 is 35. 35 times 2 is 70. 70 times 125, it comes this crazy number. Then divide by 7, then multiply by 8. But what I could do instead, I can look at this and group these. Well, to group them, I'll just commute them around and then group them. And I look and I see that right here, I know 5 times 2. I'll move this times 2 over to make it 5 times 2 times 7. I'm going to see this divided by 7. Now I'm going to move that over here to make that divided by 7. And I'm left with 125 times 8. Now the reason I moved it this way, here mentally I know 5 times 2 is 10. Which is nice because that just means you're multiplying by 1 and just adding a 0 after the number. Here I'm multiplying by 7 and dividing by 7, so that ends up being a 1. So it's like saying 10 times 1. And over here, some of you guys know, 125 times 8 is just 1,000. So in essence, this just turns out to be 10 times 1, which is 10, and 10 times 1,000 is just, well, that's 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros, 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros, and 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. The answer is 10,000. Now, I'm not going to do the left to right work. If you don't believe me, just go work from left to right. Do that yourself, and you'll see that the answer is going to be 10,000. I hope you enjoyed this video. I have some assignments connected with this video on the Google Docs sheet. Please enjoy that for you guys that just love education on its own. I have a couple more videos right over here, so just go ahead and click on one of those and learn lots of math. And please stay safe and enjoy yourself while you're at home. Have a good day.